Hello and welcome to the second round of the Boom podcast. I've decided because the last show, I didn't know what I was going to name it. Was I going to do Boom? I think people are getting sick of the Boom, but I'm not. So I thought I'm going to call it the Boom podcast. So if you're new here, you're going to listen to the first one. This is a show for small and business owners and solo professionals. As you probably know, they're responsible for all of it: sales, fulfillment, marketing, designing their offers, managing their employees, managing their VA. It can get overwhelming. And I've been there. So I wanted to create a show where people could come in and grab something and put it to action to make their business go a lot smoother. As always, I encourage you to reach out to any of my guests. I'll leave their description and I'll leave their stuff in the description. So if you feel like they can help you, reach out to them, man. I don't bring on people I think would be awful. I bring on people who, from looking at it distant, or I probably talked to them before I'm like, people, I could see how they could help you. So I do not bring on guests for the sake of vanity metrics. I bring on guests I feel confident will help you on your journey to get your goals accomplished. I'm going to shut up now. Let me introduce you to, I feel, is a very interesting man who, kind of makes you want to disagree with him on a lot of topics, which is good. And we had a call a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and it was a great call. And in my mind, I'm like, this guy can help a lot of people. I would love to have him on my show. So here he is. Here's Michal. Michal, can you introduce yourself to the guy? Just a little blurb about what you do and who you serve.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this very energetic introduction. I really appreciate it, Doug. It's great to be on your show and knowing that I'm, as you said, you don't invite people who are awful, and you also describe me as disagreeable. I think that's a huge compliment, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, so Michal Bohanes, I run a company called Alpha Lead Academy, and we help solopreneurs and small B2B companies win clients to transition from that area where you get some, referral clients via your network and having retainer clients, which is great, of course. But how about getting to that next level when you get people who you don't know yet and you want to win them as clients? So this is what we help solopreneurs and small B2B companies accomplish.
By the way, I love your offer. Tell them what your offer is. This is the way you write a killer offer. You changed your tagline. Before it was different, but this is still a good offer. What's the offer?
Well, the offer is that I do sales and marketing for solopreneurs and small B2B companies. And we offer a 3x revenue guarantee, meaning that if you, during the time that we will work together, and by the way, this is predominantly a coaching offer. And if you don't get the results that we all hope that you would get, and we say at least 3 times the investment, then you stay on as long as you need, right? We will not let you go. And we even chase after you. We actually go after you and want you to succeed. So we'll be there, breathing down your neck until you've had success, or until you tell us to just, take a hike. But
that's a heck of an offer. For me, I think a lot of people struggle putting together offers. They're so arbitrary, vague. They have a lot to do with your feelings and passion for your industry. I told people all the time, that is not what an offer is. An offer is a mixture of what's the probability that this is going to happen? What is my dream outcome? And how much time will this take? And what will make me feel like this is almost a guarantee or a promise? And you kind of mix that up into a soup and you get a really strong offer. So when I first read it, I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. If I was in the market for that, this would allow me to feel comfortable knowing my investment is going to come back at some point, right?
Of course. Yes, absolutely. And it really is sometimes difficult to anticipate. We've had the fastest client who actually made all her money back was within 5 days. Okay, so that it can go as fast as that. However, we've also had one client who needed 8 months because he was starting at a very, very low level, like not having any experience in anything has to do with marketing, never sold to a stranger before. And so there, it really can take time. So we want to simply help our clients understand that we are not one of these operations where you just come in, there's a slick content portal, and then you get on giant group calls where there's one guru preaching from the mountain. And you may have a chance to, catch his attention for 3 minutes for a question. We really are a family business, and we take a very, very one-to-one hands-on approach with our clients, even sometimes, writing some of their stuff for them just to show them how it's done. And as I said, we are very much keen to see them succeed, and therefore we will proactively reach out to them as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now let's go into how I found you and why I found you to be attractive for me to follow a little bit. So, as everybody knows, if you're not aware of it, most of the LinkedIn content that you see from marketers is don't sell. Don't pitch that. Don't go in the DM and sell me. Stop that. That's rude. And in the back of my mind, that always made me cringe a little bit. Like, okay, so granted, content can generate inbound. We can do if you do it right, if you follow certain people's strategy. But there are people who need a nudge or need something from you, or didn't realize that you could solve their problem. So you, from when I first started following you, were a breath of fresh air. You're telling people it's okay to sell in the DM, not piss that, but begin conversations that lead toward a decision point, ultimately to get on the call. Am I right so far?
Absolutely. There's no reason why you shouldn't be selling, because I think it's very important that people reframe what is selling in the end. In our world, in our civilization, we cannot sell to anyone by force. Okay, so the only way how someone will actually become a client is that they see in what you have to offer as being more valuable than the money that they will part in exchange for that. And so everybody knows that, it's obvious, but if you can reframe that in your mind, that you're actually not selling, you are trying to uncover whether they have a problem that you can help them with, then selling becomes really easy. Because if you are a mission-driven entrepreneur, consultant, B2B, SaaS company, whatever you are, but if you are mission-driven, if you really want to help people in your space, you will actually want to talk to people and uncover whether they are somebody who you could help. Right? You will want to see that happen. And therefore, I always feel like when people say don't sell, it's probably they are projecting their own insecurities on other people who are confident in what they do and want to just bring it to the world. Now, of course, as you said, we don't pitch slap, and I don't teach that, and I don't recommend that. Pitch slap being defined as you just connect with somebody and instantly you send them a, hey, do you want to jump on a quick 15-minute Zoom call and so on? Because this is what we do. Look, I'm not going to say it doesn't work, because if you do it at big enough volumes, you will probably pick up the 1 or 2 clients per every 1,000 messages that you send. Fair enough. But it just creates such bad karma. And it's simply, you are burning so many potential clients who you could talk to. Just to give you can I continue? I have like a really good comparison here. I used to run cold emails, and I've probably touched 15,000 people in that. Out of that, I probably got 4 to 5 clients. Okay, so that is every 2,000 or 3,000 people who've seen my content in a way, they became a client. And of course, maybe 50 sales calls and so on, 50 calls, discovery calls. And now when I start conversations with strangers on LinkedIn using my very friendly yet assertive and determined prospecting method, it's still very friendly, but I have a goal. I get 1 client out of 100 conversations started. So that is a 20x improvement, at least 20x improvement on that. right? Because I treated them as a human being. I started a conversation. I didn't just pitch slap them. And once they open up to you, once they start a conversation, they are willing to share that they have a problem in the area that you work in, and then they are willing to take a call. And that's how it's done, right? It's, if you just send cold emails, yes, you will get the odd conversion, but it's so much better, especially on LinkedIn, just to build these kinds of relationships with potential, prospects. And even if they don't become client, they then become, if you treat them respectfully, supporters of your content. And this then leads to further good things. So
that's awesome.
That's my fiery monologue here.
Your model reminds me a little bit of mine, and today I'm dropping my very first newsletter. And by the time this recording goes out, people will have already read it. But they're going to be upset with me. And I'll tell you why. Because the hook I have for the section of the newsletter, how you can make $1,000 on LinkedIn fast. And so obviously people are expecting me to give you some copywriting hack or some sort of way to game the algorithm. It's none of that. I say very clearly, if you're brand new to LinkedIn, say you're starting from scratch, you have anywhere from 5 months to a year to get a client. That's how long content takes, generally speaking, for people who just signed up for an account and started posting. It's not a quick win, but selling it. You can sell today. While you're building your content machine and getting your profile optimized, you can start today. People are going to email me back today. You said you can make $1,000 fast. Yes, you can. Faster than content can do it. When you're first, get it on LinkedIn. And I give them a script to follow, similar to what you do, what you just said. We first have to uncover if they even have a problem that we can solve. Otherwise, it's simply a conversation, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a huge risk of getting on the other side of the spectrum. If you say, "Oh, I really don't like pitch slaps," yes, pitch slaps are not really good. You are burning a lot of bridges and so on. So that's on one end of the spectrum. But on the other hand, is this rapport neverland? The virtual coffees that you get with people, this kind of constant chit chat of rapport building and great content and so on. Look, at some point, we all have to make money. And once you've built some initial rapport with someone, you need to transition into, hey, so I saw that you do XYZ, how's it going? Or something like that, which then signals to the other side, hey, let's talk business now. And many people will stop responding at this point. That's fine. This is simply part of the process. And it's just, you cannot completely avoid the pain, because all of this is a fear of rejection. If you are constantly going to go through life wanting to avoid discomfort and rejection, you're not going to be very successful. And just to give you a small idea, this was my fastest ever conversion from a complete stranger who I started a conversation with, initially rapport building, a couple of compliments, transitioned into business, asked how it's going, heard that it's not going all that well. And then I suggested a quick call. And I'm going to fast forward 30 hours and 52 minutes later, he had not only signed up, but paid me. And I sell a high ticket program, right? So it can go really, really fast. What you just said, $1,000 or pounds or whatever. Yes, you can do that. This was my fastest one. I made several times that within 30 hours of meeting someone. So it absolutely works, but it would not have worked if I had not initiated that conversation.
I love two things about it. Number one is the reason why you're uncomfortable with sales had nothing to do with the art of sales. It has to do with your fear of discomfort. Because, yes, for those of you in the audience probably wondering how much time I spend on the DM, I would say, let me give you a breakdown. 60% of my revenue comes from inbound leads, 60%. So my content is the main driver that makes that happen. Then I would say 20% come from referral. And a lot of those 20% referral come from these coffee talks we're talking about. Then there's 20% of me initiating conversation and seeing how I can help Okay. So I don't spend a whole lot of time. Maybe you spend more time than me, but I spend maybe an hour a day in the day I'm trying
Mhm.
to start a conversation somewhat. So how much time do you personally spend with this strategy of a day?
Yeah, good question. And when I say the number, maybe some of your some of your audience will recoil because it sounds like a lot, but you have to be mindful of the fact that I sell predominantly a coaching package, which is it's a it's a content portal where people just go in, they learn, they do the work, and then I have weekly group calls, sometimes even one-on-one calls, where I give them feedback on their work. So my client delivery is actually really efficient. So I do not have to spend a huge amount of time delivering to my clients like someone would if they, for example, have to create content for their clients, right? So it's just a little caveat. I spend approximately 20 hours a week on LinkedIn, and that is pretty neatly divided into, I would say, yeah, it's about 50-50. These days, more like maybe 70-30. 70 on content. And I mean content in the widest sense. That means doing LinkedIn lives like I did one yesterday. I do, of course, my own content. I comment on other people's content, generally creating this sort of whirlwind of activities so that you are present, which drives a lot of views of my profile, which then results in people reaching out to me, right? So, and very similar to you, I looked at last year's and it's slightly less than you, it's like 55%, just about 50% of revenue comes from inbound, the rest from outbound, because I don't do any coffee chats and so on. Very rarely do I do. You're a rare exception, actually. I just thought this
I
guy's
like
fun.
coffee
This
shop.
guy's fun.
I
I want to meet
enjoy
him.
coffee shop only because I'm willing to sacrifice the time for connection. Now, this is not some wishy-washy, hug-a-tree sentiment. It's generally because I'm in this room a lot and it gets lonely. So I enjoy having a coffee chat with people who I know are not typically my buyer, but I interacted with them. I do enjoy it. It's great to get to know them. But that's for me, no money is made from it. So I don't want people thinking, oh, if I have a dozen coffee talks, I'm gonna make millions. No, you're not. But you
No, you're
might
not.
be happier. If that's your thing, if you crave connection, that's a great way to do it. But it can get out of hand quickly if you
Oh,
schedule too many of them.
absolutely. And if you tend to be on the other side of the spectrum, meaning if you are prone to land in the neverland of rapport building, then you are, by trying to avoid doing the sales calls, you will then overload yourself on the virtual coffees, and then at some point you're going to get evicted because you cannot pay the rent.
That, that's the truest thing I've ever heard. So I realized the negative gain from a coffee talk from a monetary perspective, but how much pleasure I get out of it. I think most of life is really how much how much displeasure are you willing to handle, and how much pleasure do you need? And trying to find something that keeps your house paid for and keeps
Mhm.
you happy, which is an interesting sort of tangent into. I've also learned you're really big on this personal development journey, along with your wife, by the way. And you're one of the most committed. You got the 5 a.m. club. You tried the carnivore diet. I mean, it seems to me you look for discomfort to grow, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a recovering sugar, cake, and all kinds of other sweet items addict, and I've completely cut that out. I never thought I could do that, and I'm sort of gradually reducing any kind of pleasure-seeking activities out of my life because I'm on a mission. I want to build a business. I want to become completely financially independent, and I believe that any dependence on pleasure seeking is but a distraction, right? And I'm not completely cutting out, I'm
They are. I
still
won't counter that.
exactly, I'm married and I have a boy, so we definitely have family time and all of that. That is the most important thing in my life, of course. But other than that, we for example, we don't have a TV, right? We don't watch anything. We even, also thanks to the pandemic, have drastically reduced our socializing, which is of course normal because we had a boy only 20 months ago. So many of the traditional things that other people do as a matter of course, we don't do them. And it's not for everyone, I get it, but I'm just on a mission. And it's things like the 5 a.m. club. And that means effectively I'm getting up at 4:45, I take a picture of my watch and I go for a run with my dog. That is simply part of the process. And this is also how and exactly, that there was a great tie-in. If you teach yourself to avoid pleasure and to seek discomfort, you will do exactly the things that are going to make you successful. Like focusing on one thing for 3 hours at a time, not getting distracted by any shiny online objects, but doing the work. That's very uncomfortable. Like your brain wants to take a break and so on. And if you refuse that, if you go for the discomfort, if you actively seek it out, then you're going to be much more successful, much faster. So this is how both, and this is one of the reasons why I married my wife, is because she's exactly on the same train. And we kind of live this lifestyle and are very, very happy with it.
This is interesting because, by the way, for those of you out there, I am by no means on the same train here. I'm not trying to avoid it or saying it's wrong. It's just that, but I would say that in the last 2 years, my business has accelerated faster because I stopped playing video games. Number one, I used to love gaming. I wouldn't call myself a gamer, but I thought I deserved a break and go play some video games. And the next thing you know, you deplete all your serotonin and your dopamine, and you have no creative energy left. And you have to work that back up. And then you play some more games. So I cut the gaming out of my life. 2 years ago, I have no idea what games are out there right now. Number two, I cut my drinking way back. I was never an alcoholic, but I did enjoy a nice whiskey and shake off the edges of my day. But with gaming and drinking together, plus I used to love reading books, like not self-help books, but literature. And these three things together took up hours of my time. When I started calculating how much time I'd wasted, now obviously, if this was whiskey and you drink it, I'm not talking about the amount of time it takes to drink the whiskey. I'm talking about the amount of time whiskey takes from you.
Of course. Of course.
Not only you're not able to do anything for the next 2 hours, you're on the couch.
Of course.
And when you wake up in the morning, you're still not able to do anything. So that's about 4 hours a little whiskey can take from you. Then you add gaming to so pleasure. While I love pleasure, I can't tell my chemicals to stop. But I have to discipline myself to say, this is not going to serve me. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, which takes me back to sales. It's that, were you always comfortable with selling?
It's a very good question. I think because I'm quite an extrovert and I have a relatively easy time striking up a conversation with people, then I would say I was never uncomfortable with it. However, honestly, before I started the current line of the business, which is about 2.5 years ago, I never felt I had to sell because the deals were coming my way and I'd never had to actively initiate conversations. But it started to become less and less at some point, but then it again picked up. And at some point I was like, okay, I need to change my business model into something that is more scalable, because I was doing effectively done for you work and I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I changed into a pure coaching model. And this is then the moment when you have to start selling. I was fortunate enough to get enough business in with some, peaks and valleys while I was doing done for you, but I never had to actively sell. And the selling, this is where my learning curve massively increased. I've become a way better listener, become a way better speaker and listener to between the lines and all of that in the last 2.5 years, because I've actually started to study it and actively improve in it. So to answer your question, I think I was always comfortable with the idea. I just never did it very deliberately. Even when I was doing the work as an employee, it came relatively naturally. It was like long-term B2B sales. So it never really felt like classic sales where you start a conversation with a complete stranger. Yeah. Right. So it's a non-bullet pointy answer to your question, but that's how it is.
So on this same theme, your clients who are either A, introverted, or B, racked with self-consciousness, how do you get them to a comfortable place to build a outbound system?
It's a very good question. I think it all starts with competence. You really need to be good at what you do. And if you're not, then build that. Become better at what you do. That's step one. Step two, even if you're not world-class yet at what you do, learn this. And this was a huge insight for me. And that is, you are considerably better at it than your prospective clients. And that's all you need to be. You don't need to be the world's best. You don't even need to be your country's best, right? It's all enough. Clients. Exactly. You just need to be considerably, you need to be considerably, but still only better than your clients and offer them your services. And then add into it some kind of being mission driven, right? You want to help people in this space. You do believe in yourself. And also, don't you want to make money, right? So that's like a couple of these ingredients that you then kind of put into place, and you get yourself in your brain logically to a point of, well, there's no alternative. I'm now going to have to do outbound and going to have to do selling because now these things have fallen into place. I am good at what I do. I am better than my clients. I am mission driven. I want to succeed personally, and I want to help my clients succeed. Well, it's like a mathematical formula. Out of this flows that I'm going to do outbound, that I'm going to do selling. And it sounds a little bit very rational. But I feel that whenever I hear someone who does not have that, who struggles with selling, there's usually one of these components considerably missing. And so my goal with them is to work it out which of these components it is. Yeah, and to see how I can reawaken that.
You're not mission driven, or your focus is not on serving others, or two, you don't have the mindset of, you know what, I have something my clients are not good at, or I'm better at my clients than that. If you're missing one of those two or three things, it gets out of whack a little bit, right?
Yes, but also, you know what, quite recently I had a conversation with a client who is not progressing as fast as I would want him to. And we went really deep into these things. And one of the components that we uncovered was that he is not driven enough to become very good at what he does. And I showed him one of his competitors who's like obsessively researching about this topic and is publishing his insights on LinkedIn, how to do that area. I don't want to mention what area it is, but how to do that area better and better and better. And he's like a tinkerer. That other guy, the competitor of my clients, right? He's a real tinkerer and keeps improving and so on. And I showed this competitor to my client and say, this is how you got to do it, right? You really have to be obsessed about your domain. You really need to investigate that. So you said correctly, yes, there are different factors, like you need to be mission driven. You need to want to help your clients. But also, on the other hand, you need to constantly want to become better at what you do. And this, I feel, especially in many people who are like small solopreneurs just getting started, this is one of the most frequent ingredients that's missing. I think it's the most important one. If you want to genuinely become the best at what you do, and you don't just say it, but you keep working on it, you're a tinkerer, you try to improve, hey, maybe there's a better way to do this and that, and everything will take care of itself. So that's the formula.
I think you and I have that component for our work, because I see you constantly tinkering in the same way that you explain to your client. I see you consistent. I see you passionate. I see you obsessing about inbound, outbound, marketing, sales, all of that. And I feel much the same way. A lot of clients that I serve are shocked that I'm still on LinkedIn at a certain hour. What they don't realize is I'm working. I'm not hanging out. I'm learning. I'm studying. It's interesting. It's fascinating. There's endless amount of material that I can create just by hanging out and interacting with people. And so when clients say I can't get there, it's similar to what you're saying. It's because you don't spend enough time obsessing what your client want, what problems they have, how are you going to speak to them, what they want to see and experience to make a decision to go with you or a competitor. If all you care about is the bottom line, which is vital, there's other components to it, which is obsession, mission-driven, and the ability to deliver. Those are the three things. I think personally that makes a great entrepreneur, if you will. See, I have a hard time calling myself an entrepreneur. Do you call yourself an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I guess. Why? Why don't you like it?
I don't know. Entrepreneur to me is somebody who created something. Like Elon Musk, sending rockets to space. That's an entrepreneur. I'm a business person.
It's quite a high bar to clear. If you need only Elon Musk can call himself an entrepreneur, then indeed, practically no one is an entrepreneur. I see the entrepreneur as basically someone who is in business for themselves, can be a solopreneur. And I would not really restrict it to any particular traits. It's just the definition of someone who is starting a business. And you could argue that maybe there should be the will to grow it significantly, to scale it. But who am I to say that someone who's a solo lawyer, a practitioner, and he delivers great service, who am I to say that they are not an entrepreneur? If they started their business from scratch, they are developing their own clients and so on. To me, that's an entrepreneur, but I haven't thought much about that, to be honest.
Yeah, for me, I have, because I see a lot of titles, entrepreneur. I work with entrepreneur. I help entrepreneur. And I'm like, so what is an entrepreneur by your definition? Because to me, I don't view myself as an entrepreneur. I'll tell you why. Because there's nothing new about what I'm doing. I have a skill that I'm selling, like a blacksmith. So back in the day, when you're hammering out the sword and the armor, you don't go to the blacksmith, oh, he's an entrepreneur. No, you say, what a great blacksmith. So I see myself more on the skill set, and I take pride in my skills, but I'm not creating a new skill set that you've never seen before. I just do it with my own signature.
Okay, but then how do you distinguish that on, let's say, the skill that you are, selling is writing? How do you distinguish that versus someone who is employed by advertising agency, for example, and is a copywriter, is a professional copywriter and is employed? You need to have some kind of distinguishing factor, because this person also sells their skill, only that they sell it to only one client and they happen to be employed, right, by that client. So there is a distinction between that. You are facing the risk of suddenly your client's dropping you and you need to bring in new ones, right? That is a different level of risk that somebody has who's employed, right? And you have to have different mindset. You're probably way more obsessed about it than the average employee is about their skill. So I think these differences, they do warrant a certain, semantic distinction here.
Put it this way. To me, the distinction between the employed and the self-employed is a business person, meaning they run a business. To me, I guess the vision of an entrepreneur is somebody who said, you know what? Nobody has an app where you can put your restaurant review. Let me come up with an app and call it Yelp. So an entrepreneur embarks into a land that never had been explored before.
Okay.
So,
Sure.
so the person who came up with Yelp, to me, is an entrepreneur. The Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, there's a whole, forget Mark Zuckerberg, other people who come up with tools that have never been in existence, have a vision of it, and take whatever they can to make it become real. That,
Okay.
to me, is the vision, is the entrepreneur. I see myself more as a business person. I have a business. It's not a new model. You can find a dozen like me. I didn't envision that thing. I do it better than some. My
Okay.
offer is this. Interested. Whereas people who come up with an app, they have to convince you
Okay.
to buy something you have never seen before.
Okay. So someone who is starting a new, let's say, clothing line, or because I'm looking at you, headphones, somebody who invents new headphones and is like invents, just,
They're
change,
business
makes a
people.
little tweak. They're business people. They're not entrepreneurs.
Somebody who comes up with a headphone that you don't have to wear. They put a microchip in the back of your head and you can hear music. It's an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Okay. Plus a freak. Okay. Good. Fine. Let's keep it at that then. Then let's agree on that definition. So we are business people and not entrepreneurs. Okay. Fine. I can live with that.
All right, my friend. So let's go back. I think people are missing a key part of your story. I saw that you used to have your own company in London, right? That's, what was it called? I'm on your profile. It was called Dinner Without the E.
Yes, exactly. As I
So
said,
take me to that. What was going on in your life at that point?
yeah, that was pretty terrible. It was a startup in the mold of, I don't know if you know them, they're like called, in the US, I think they're called Blue Apron or Hello Fresh. There's many of these companies that provide recipe ingredients. And I started a business just like that in June 2012. I left my cushy job at Google for that business. And it failed within 1.5 years.
So you worked at Google?
Yeah, I worked at Google before that.
No, I didn't even cut the 11 other experience you've had. Oh man!
Yeah, I was at Google.
This
I was at Google for
everything
3.5 years. Yeah.
About your, never fear. Continue. What happened with Dinner?
Well, with Dinner, it was really interesting because my huge lesson learned from this, and I keep trying to impart this to my clients now. The biggest lesson ever was how I discovered the customer pain point for it and how I did it badly. Because what I did is, it's traditional, recipe ingredients. So you bring them a bag with, some cooling agents in that and some meat and pre-portioned stuff. So you just put it together in a pan and you cook it. And the way how I thought that this would be a good idea was I spoke to a few people. I talked to them, presented them the idea. They said, oh my God, I love that. I would totally buy it. And then, so I launched it. I quit my job. I launched it, and lo and behold, very few of the people who said they would buy it actually bought it. And this was a huge epiphany for me because I made the mistake of asking people about their future behavior in a product area that is somewhat aspirational. What do I mean? It's people want to cook. They want to be better.
Trying to solve a future problem instead of a current problem.
Yes, that's one way you can say it, but it was not really even a future problem. It was not a problem. I was not solving anything. And in combination with the fact that, first of all, people didn't need it. There was no pain point associated to that. And second, I did not have enough money in the bank to kind of iterate on the model and optimize it, which the likes of HelloFresh or in the UK now, a company called Gusto started at the same time as me, are very successful now, but they raised a lot of money for this. So they could afford to tweak, to improve and optimize. And I didn't have that. I only raised like 60,000 pounds at the time, nowhere near enough. And at some point, I think I totaled maybe $10,000, $15,000 over the whole course of the lifetime of the business. So it was a big, massive failure, but also a great lesson learned. So I wouldn't want to miss that. I think the main lesson for me is never ask your future or potential clients about their future behavior Instead, ask them about real problems that they have and how they are currently solving them. And if they are not solving them, it's a good sign that it's not really a problem. And never ever present them with your intended solution, because most people will give you compliments and will say, yes, I would buy that. So that was my huge lesson learned from it. It was 1.5 years. And after that failure, I went back into employment for 2.5 years and then started this business.
So you crashed and burned, went back to 9 to 5. Did you still have that hunger to, so in other words, a lot of people I've met who try something like that get this curse for the rest of their life. They'll never try it again. But what made you, based on past failure, go into 9 to 5 and then leave 9 to 5 again to go on this journey? Was it a call in your heart to do it yourself, or what was it that got you back in the game?
What was it I got back in the game was I got fired. And I was at the time in the London startup community. So the business failed early 2014. I got a job in February 2014 and then was fired from my last job in September 2016. And so there I was in 3 companies and I started to really dislike the startup environment. One was that I felt that my bosses were very often, they were like very charismatic, but they lacked execution. And I felt that I was very much on the opposite side. Not that I'm not charismatic or anything like that. I don't want to judge that. But the point is that I felt like really beholden to my team. I wanted them to succeed. And very often people were not treated well. I felt, they were treated like quite disposable. So that was one thing. And then it was the last one where I got fired was because I simply got into a conflict with my boss, who was the CEO, and I just simply disagreed with the approach. And before I was able to just cut the cord, he was faster and he fired me. So that was the whole story. And then after that firing, I could have gotten into another job then, but I also felt there was like sort of another like sort of spiritual awakening, you can call it. I realized I'm a conservative, and more and more this became apparent. And if you know anything about the startup environment, especially in an urban area, it's extremely on the other side. Like it's very, very liberal, sometimes even leftist. And I felt like I could just not be myself there. Anytime I was expressing my skepticism about a few certain liberal/leftist shibboleths, I was rebuked in quite harsh ways. And so that's where I realized, okay, I have to give up this life in the startup environment. I'm just not welcome there. And I'm not going to deny who I am. And so that's what made my founding of Content 360, which it was called at the time, a necessity. I realized, okay, look, I'm good at what I do. I'm good at writing. At that time, I was not yet very good at marketing, but I improved and so on. So I said, look, I can feed myself with just my writing. So let's just start with that. And then over time, things grew and became better and so on. And now I do what I do and I'm very, very happy with it. And I think that me being on my own is the only way forward for me. I can never be employed again. There's just no way. So this has to work.
We have about 5 minutes left, and I wish we had more time because you bring up such a difficult conversation to have online, which is conservative versus liberal. And it's obvious to anyone who's winning the culture war. I mean, you cannot be conservative or have conservative values online and stay that way. Meaning, you cannot project your conservative philosophy and still have an account online, especially not LinkedIn. And I've always, for me, I'm not overly political. I believe in common sense, whatever that is, and live and let live. I really don't care what you do. Just don't mess with me. Don't tell me what to do. You do you, I'll do me. And if what you're doing affects me, then we got a problem. Otherwise, I don't want to know what you do in your private life and where you go, who you talk to, what you worship, don't care. But I noticed these very heavy conservatives on LinkedIn, they get their stuff banned all the time. They get their accounts suspended.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. That's not cool. And I know we can't say free speech because in the United States, free speech means the government won't punish you. That doesn't mean LinkedIn has an obligation to serve you. That just means you're safe from the government from putting you in jail. So therefore, please speak your mind. But when you have powerful platforms who mostly reside in the urban areas that you just spoke of, suppressing the alternate point of view, it makes me very worried about our future because you need a balance of opposing point of view to create the ideal, in my mind, because you're all the way conservative and your whole echo chamber is conservative. You're not going to be strong. It needs to be discomfort in order to grow. So do you feel that way as a person who has conservative points of view that you don't have a place to speak freely?
I do think that there are, of course, places to speak freely, and I have become less political over time because I am really focused on building my business. And there, I don't want to be a firebrand, right? Who's just kind of waving the conservative flag. I just like you, I just want to be left alone, first of all. But to me, also, left alone means that, for example, I don't get forced to have to choose my pronouns, that kind of stuff, right? So I'm glad that still at this point it's optional. I'm curious how long it's going to remain optional. I also don't like the idea of being forced to speak up about some kind of an issue that I genuinely, for example, disagree with, right? And these subtle pressures are mounting, in my opinion. And so this is what I'm speaking out against. I'm not very political. I definitely don't want to get into any comment wars talking about whatever, Trump versus Biden or anything like that. However, I do have specific values that I think go hand in hand with entrepreneurial success. For example,
you create your own life.
Exactly.
You are the master of your own life.
Exactly. You say it correctly. And especially, everything is your fault. If you accept that everything, that your current situation is your fault, then you will be a much, much better entrepreneur. However, if you are on the, let's say, the more left side of the spectrum, you see many reasons why you are in the position that you are in, just not that it's your fault. It's always other people's fault. And so that's where the political necessarily overlaps with the entrepreneurial, or business person-y, as according to our new definition here, because it overlaps. Your values reflect in your business. And this is when my content needs to not necessarily become a little bit political, because you cannot think that you're a victim and then be successful by launching your business. So,
and I always tell people, I never knew that was a conservative philosophy, because there are conservatives who are victims too. They whine a lot, and they have really big beer bellies, and they just like the idea of being conservative. But a true conservative person is a person who eliminates excuses from their vocabulary, and it's growing every hard journey. It never ends, because your mind is always going to look for the path of least resistance. You have to discipline your mind to back way at the front of the conversation to be uncomfortable. And claiming ownership is uncomfortable. Case in point, with the last few minutes of our conversation, I told you at the beginning of the call, I'm that, right? I didn't say it to get your pity. I said it to prep. And people always tell me, Doug, you know how you can get more clients? Start talking about your debt. I'm like, no, what for? What for? Because that people, I don't care if they're from the UK or the United States, love getting handouts from the government. And I refuse, because as soon as I accept the handout, I accept that My life is not my own. I've accepted my fate. I rebuild. So I will always carry on. Whether that's a liberal value or conservative value, I call it kicking ass. So I'd rather kick ass than lay
Boom.
down and accept. That's it.
That's it.
Oh,
Exactly.
I'm the party
That's it.
of kick ass. So whether you join me or not, we have no president. We are the president. So that's my philosophy of life. So especially with my kids, when they start moaning a little bit, I'm like, what are you gonna do about it? No, I'm not being mean. I'm not, whipping them. I'm just saying, what are you gonna do about it? Your
Bingo.
computer broke.
That's it.
What now? What now?
That's it.
Oh,
That's it.
well, can you buy me a new computer? Absolutely not. What are we gonna do about it? Maybe you can build your own computer. Have you
Build your own
thought about
computer.
that?
Or do a little side business, sell some popcorn on the sidewalk and make enough money so you can buy your own, whatever. It's exactly right. And I really, really commend you for that you are not putting this out there, as, oh, this is your big thing, you waving the flag and so on. That's exactly how to go about it. You are a fighter. I love that about you, that you are not waving the flag of this. And you deserve enormous respect for this, because I think it's so tempting in our society. It's really, really tempting to put it out there and to demand whatever, victim points you can get from that. I think that's awesome what you're doing. Exactly.
Thank you, my friend. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Love it.
How can people find you? Are you mostly on LinkedIn? Are you on other channels too?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Michal Bohanes is the name. And you can also go to alphaleadacademy.com if you want to find out more about what we do. And if that would be a good fit for you, just get in touch.
Absolutely. For those of you watching on YouTube, I'll put all of this stuff in the description. Reach out to them if you need help. As always, I wish you all a happy journey. Let's get it going. Thank you, Michal, for everything. It was great.
I thank you. Really appreciate it, Doug. Thank you.